Hey everyone, I hate Mary Jane in Insomniac's Spider-Man. Over the years, I've seen countless versions of this character. In every iteration, she plays a significant role in Peter Parker's life, serving as his primary love interest. You might have mixed feelings about her, but one thing remains consistent. She's always been supportive of Peter. They've always been portrayed as soulmates. Well, aside from some questionable interpretations, which we won't even get into here. Even Mary Jane from Raimi's trilogy feels like a superior take compared to her video game counterpart. Insomniac's developers seem determined to follow a modern trend, making a female character strong by turning her into an unnecessarily brash, hyper-independent figure. This approach affects every aspect of her character, from her career to her relationships. The first time we meet her in the game, she's in a museum. Right off the bat, she tries to assert her usefulness by knocking out a demon. Yes, a demon. Considering we've just been playing as Spider-Man, taking down hordes of enemies with superhuman strength, this scene feels forced to the point of absurdity.
Says the guy I saved 5 minutes ago.
Sadly, this sets the tone for her behavior throughout the game. If that wasn't bad enough, the developers saddled us with stealth missions where we have to play as Mary Jane. Let me tell you, stealth missions are the last thing anyone wants in a Spider-Man game. Yet here we are, watching her casually take down trained Sable agents with a shock device. And let's not forget, even her most successful missions wouldn't be possible without Peter's gadgets. Truly independent, right? Armed with just a camera and some borrowed tech, she somehow manages to infiltrate heavily guarded bases filled with Sable agents or demons. Her lack of self-preservation instincts is astounding. Worse still, her recklessness often puts others at risk. A prime example of this is the train station mission. She finds out the demons are planning something at the station and decides to handle it all by herself. For a brief moment, she considers calling Peter, only to brush the idea off because she wants to prove she's capable. Spoiler alert, her actions lead to the death of a police officer and nearly cost the lives of hostages. Predictably, she gets captured, and her only option is to call Peter for help. What's infuriating is how hypocritical she is. She refuses to share critical information with Peter, insisting it's her investigation, yet the moment she's in trouble, she has no problem calling for his help. Throughout the game, her primary concern is her own career. When Peter asks if she should really be putting herself in danger, her response is, "More than you." Excuse me? Honestly, she needs therapy. Her attitude reeks of resentment and insecurity. She's desperate to prove herself as the main character in everyone's story, but her efforts are purely self-serving. She constantly feels the need to validate herself, insisting she can handle everything on her own. Yet, time and again, she fails, and the only reason she's still alive is because of one person. Peter. And let's not forget, she blames him for their breakup, claiming his concern for her safety is stifling her potential. What she doesn't seem to grasp is that her presence during dangerous situations is a liability. If she's around during a crisis, Peter might have to make impossible choices, like whether to save her or innocent bystanders. Her insistence on being involved could lead to disastrous consequences, because Peter would be forced to split his focus between protecting civilians and keeping her safe. The harsh truth is that Mary Jane doesn't bring anything to the table in comparison to Peter, yet Insomniac is obsessed with the idea that Peter always needs her help. They're willing to diminish his character just to push this misguided narrative that she's somehow crucial. A prime example is the infamous burning building scene, where they bent over backward to make her seem indispensable. At the end of the day, Mary Jane's portrayal in this game feels like a disservice to both her character and Peter's. Instead of being a partner who complements his strengths, she's turned into a frustrating, one-dimensional figure, trying too hard to prove her worth at the expense of everyone around her. She appears out of nowhere and saves the day, while Peter is left struggling to hold up a piece of the floor. Hold on a second, are we seriously supposed to believe that Spider-Man, after holding together a train, stopping a helicopter, and catching a truck, suddenly can't handle this? The developers clearly had to nerf Peter and make him look incompetent, just to make MJ seem more capable. But it doesn't work. All I see is someone making impulsive, reckless decisions, fueled by ego and jealousy toward Peter. No matter how hard she tries to come across as strong and independent, she always ends up relying on him in the end. Let's talk about MJ as Peter's love interest. At the start of the first game, Peter and MJ aren't together anymore. We piece together what their relationship was like from their conversations and a few subtle hints. In one exchange, MJ casually brings up their painful breakup with a smile on her face.
Yeah, they were pretty happy when we broke up.
What? Why would you bring up something like that? And why with a smile? It comes off like she's barely affected by the breakup, or by Peter's feelings, for that matter. Sure, she says at the end of the game that she's always wanted to be with him, but her actions throughout the story tell a different story. There's nothing but sarcasm, frustration, and veiled jabs from her side. The game doesn't give us a single heartfelt or comforting moment between them. Every interaction is tied to the main plot, not their relationship. There's no meaningful chemistry, no genuine connection, and no warm, personal conversations. Their romance feels hollow, as though it only exists because, canonically, these characters are supposed to end up together. By the time the sequel rolls around, not much has changed, except MJ's appearance. The first game ends with Peter and MJ moving in together, and in the sequel, their relationship continues to develop. But along with that, MJ's ego and arrogance reach new heights. At first, it seems promising. She even tries to support Peter and offers to help, but as the story progresses, her true nature comes to light. One scene in particular stands out to me. It's after Peter's rampage while wearing the black suit. For context, MJ works as a journalist, not just anywhere, but for J. Jonah Jameson. You know, the guy who's been Spider-Man's #1 public enemy for years, constantly turning the city against him with lies and even funding the creation of villains like Scorpion to take him down. The idea of MJ working for someone like Jameson, knowing full well that Spider-Man is Peter, is baffling. Isn't MJ supposed to be resourceful enough to find a better job, or is she just willing to ignore all that for a paycheck? That question goes unanswered. And let's say we accept this bizarre career choice. When Peter starts acting out under the symbiote's influence, what does MJ do? Does she try to understand him, support him? Nope. Her first instinct is to rush to work and write an exposé about Spider-Man. She literally pens an article trashing him for Jameson's tabloid, a paper that thrives on discrediting Spider-Man. Here's the kicker. In that very scene, MJ acknowledges that the suit is what's changing Peter. She knows it's not his fault, but she still writes the article. Bravo, truly girlfriend of the year material. And don't even get me started on the second game's MJ missions. Sometimes, I wonder why Insomniac doesn't mass produce those shock devices she uses, considering they can take down symbiotes with a single shot, while Spider-Man has to wail on them repeatedly. It's laughable how overpowered they make her in these segments. Insomniac's portrayal of MJ feels like a masterclass in how not to write a character. In their attempt to create a strong female character, they've turned her into a reckless, self-absorbed nightmare, who constantly overshadows Peter, not because she's genuinely capable, but because the narrative forces him to be less competent to make her shine. This kind of writing does a disservice to both characters. Peter Parker, a hero defined by his resilience, intelligence, and selflessness, is reduced to a secondary player in his own story whenever MJ is around. Instead of working as a team or showing complementary strengths, the dynamic feels one-sided, with Peter constantly playing the role of her safety net, while MJ is portrayed as someone who doesn't need help, until of course she inevitably does. But the real issue is that this approach undermines the concept of true strength. A strong character doesn't have to tear others down to prove their worth. Strength comes from growth, understanding, and collaboration. MJ could have been written as a genuinely supportive partner, someone who challenges Peter in meaningful ways, and brings her own unique strengths to the table without diminishing his. Instead, she's turned into a character who prioritizes her ego and independence over logic, safety, and frankly, common sense. This creates a disconnect with players. When a character constantly makes decisions that are reckless or selfish and yet faces no real consequences, it's hard to root for them. It's even harder to believe in the relationship they're supposed to have with Peter when there's little evidence of mutual respect or affection. Ultimately, Insomniac missed an opportunity to show what made Peter and MJ such an iconic couple in the first place. Their partnership. The trust, respect, and love that have defined their relationship in so many other adaptations are completely absent here. Instead, we're left with a hollow shell of their dynamic, propped up by plot contrivances and shallow attempts to modernize MJ's character. As fans, we don't expect perfection, but we do want characters who feel real, relatable, and true to themselves. Unfortunately, Insomniac's Mary Jane fails on all those fronts. Let's just hope that future adaptations find a better balance, because Peter and the fans deserve better. This trend of empowered women characters like MJ has resulted in a fiery redhead who quite honestly makes me cringe every time she's on screen. It's terrifying to think about what they'll do with Cindy Moon. How much more will they have to downplay Peter just to prop her up? I guess we'll find out in a few years. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Watching without subscribing is basically a crime. See you in the next one. Take care.